Welcome to the first episode of the Raidercast. I'm your host, Maximus, and today we're going to go over the predictions of mine for how the AFC West is going to shake out. So starting off, we're going to go to Denver, Colorado, and start off with the Broncos. So my floor for the Broncos is 7-10. Now, the reason I have 7-10 as their floor is because you have a new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, and although he is a very good head coach, very good offensive coordinator, not head coach, um, and he helped, Blake Bortles actually look good in Jacksonville. I think that they could struggle early on just because it's a new coaching system and there's a lot of unproven coordinators, as their main offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams, etc. Then you have the idea of Russell Wilson trying to get used to that system, the new system that he's going to have in Denver versus Seattle. You have the possibility that the wide receiver core is not as good as everyone thinks it is, which people like to point out that Jerry Jeudy should be really, really good. But when you look at his, and they blame that, Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater aren't good QBs, which is true. But why did he have 900 yards with Drew Lock as his main QB in 2020 and then not do well in 2021? Yeah, yep. What's up, Ash? And they did add Randy Gregory, but I'm Randy Gregory's biggest hater. I think he's overrated, and he's like 29 or 30. He's only started like 2 full seasons. So I don't think he's actually that good. He'll be alright. He's not elite how they're trying to push, how they're trying to say they're in the same level as Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and obviously Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. They're nowhere near that. What's up, big dog? What's up, large canine? Um, how you doing today, Ash? um, but yeah, Gregory. If he plays, he should be solid, and he's not going to be the game record that they're trying to hype him up to be at all. Um, and then pairing him with Bradley Chubb, who's also injured a lot, does not scare me at all. It shouldn't be that much of a threat. However, Nick Bonito should probably actually be their best pass rusher. I think he's actually going to be better than Bradley Chubb and um, Randy Gregory, both of them combined. He'll probably get the starting job over Bradley Chubb, if I'm being honest. And you got DJ Jones, though, up the middle, which is a really good signing. He's a really good defensive tackle from San Francisco. And we also should see if he's actually a really good defensive tackle or he just benefits from that D-line already being really good. So we'll see about that. And then they got Kwan Williams also from San Francisco, who should be solid for them if he stays healthy, because he missed a few games last season due to injury, but he should be fine. And then looking at their stars, you have Patrick Surtain, obviously Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon should be one of the best backfields in the NFL, unfortunately. They're up there probably, in my opinion, with they could be up there with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, with Javonte being more of the Nick Chubb part of that. See if Melvin and Javonte will split carries again, or they'll just go back to, or if they'll go to more heavily on Javonte, which I could see happening for sure. And then obviously you have Russell Wilson, who they traded for, and we'll see if he's actually good again. He had a solid 2020. He did not have a good 2021 at all, and you could blame that on his injury all you want, but he just did not play. Oh, that's true. I probably should tweet that. You're not wrong. But yeah, so I just tweeted out I'm live. Probably should have done that to start, but that's okay. But yeah, I think next tangent. That'd be kind of. I mean, I don't know how much pull or like how much he gets in the organization, but that would be cool to actually be able to do like player interviews or anything like that. Um, um, where was I? Oh, Russell Wilson. Yeah. He's definitely obviously probably top easily top half QBs. We'll see if he's actually going to change. I mean, that's obviously a big upgrade over Drew Lock, and I'm not saying he's not a good QB. My point is, can he actually like bring them to that ceiling or above that ceiling of 11-6? I mean, I feel like that's a realistic thing is that they go 11-6, but also 7-10. I feel is also not that far off, especially if say Randy Gregory gets injured again or Bradley Chubb gets injured, or they have they have their wide receivers, one of their wide receivers get hurt. Bro, if I got a Max Crosby interview, I don't want to know what to do with myself. But yeah, I think that injuries could play a problem. I think that new coaching and new pretty much everything for their new coach, they have new coordinators, they have new everything, new QBs. I mean, important too. I could see them starting off bad and then getting better, like starting off like 2-3 or 1-4, but then getting some wins, but then ending up still probably 7-10. They could as well if they don't get enough steam rolling, but they could also end up 11-6. I mean, you never know with that. Um, but yeah, and so obviously I have their ceiling as 11-6, and I kind of want to look at their. I like to look at. Okay, I know people don't like PFF, but I do. So I mean, if you look at their last year, they were 23rd in points scored, and they were third in points allowed. So that just proves how good their defense was. But that's another thing I want to bring up is they lose Vic Fangio, who's a great defensive guy. He's I feel like it's a bigger loss than people are expecting for their defense because I think they still have a lot of stars on the defense, a lot of solid players on the defense. But I do not think they'll be as good as they were um, at all. I think they'll definitely drop down out of that top tier defense, and but we'll have to see. I think they have the Rams. I think it was the Rams DB coach as their defensive coordinator right now, so we'll have to see if he can actually bring that Rams defensive mindset and skill set to the Broncos. And if he does, like fully and turn them into a Rams defense, then obviously they will be a very scary defense. But I think their offense is going to be their main way they're going to win. And looking at their roster, and I know PF grades are not end all be all, but again, I like to look at them just because they do give you an idea. It looks like they have a solid tackle in Tom Compton, which I don't think anyone's really talking about. I guess he had a lot of snaps, which is good for them. Melvin Gordon split carries with Javonte Williams, who's over here. They literally almost had. If Javonte almost had like 40 more carries, but that's not anything to. That's not anything really. So they have two top 20 running backs right here, as you can tell. I mean, they are both just really good running backs. So Russell Wilson still had a solid year. He was 19th out of. Also, if you hear thunder, it's because it's thundering here. Russell Wilson, good QB. He had a down year, so 73 and a down year is pretty good. Cortland Sutton is there definitely, and Tim Patrick are literally the same wide receiver. But we'll see if they can actually be wide receiver ones and not just wide receiver twos. You have Jerry Jeudy, who, despite having low yards, they have a good grade 2. I don't think I mean, 0 touchdowns is insane, and only 412. Like, he had worse stats. This is we talked about a lot on Twitter, but less yards and less stats than Henry Ruggs, when Henry Ruggs was literally locked up for over half the season, is terrible for someone that you want to be good. But yeah, I mean, Albert O seems like a solid tight end, but he's not going to be anything like Darren Waller or Travis Kelce. That's really it. And then they have Greg I don't know how to say his name. As their rookie, who could also be solid for them, but we'll see how he shakes out. And looking at their defense, yeah, I never heard of this guy before, but he also had limited snaps, so I don't really count that at all. These two are low snaps, so that doesn't matter. Their best defender was Justin Simmons, according to PFF. Which I mean, I know Michael, I don't know his at anymore. It's not I know ball. I think it's Mexican. I don't even know his at, but he's a Justin Simmons hater, but I think Justin Simmons is a very fine safety. DJ Jones, like I said, he's a really good defensive lineman. A 73.7% for a defensive tackle is insane. And then you have Randy Gregory, who's, I mean, if you look outside box score, he was a really good defender. Then you have Patrick Surtain, who's really good. And you have Quan Williams, who, like I said, was really good. Not really good, but solid. And then you just have a bunch of solid players. Anything in the 60s to 70s is good. Anything below like 60 is not that great, but we'll see how they do. Yeah, I think that's just I think they'll have a solid roster. I just think 7-10 is definitely a realistic outlook for them if things go wrong, if they don't get on the right track fast enough, or if they have too many injuries, stuff like that. So the next team we're going to talk about is the Chiefs. So I don't have them going absolutely insane and getting like 14, 15 wins because they did lose Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is a huge loss for them. Absolutely huge loss. And I think that the NFL world and Chiefs fans are coping very hard. They're high on copium right now. They are absolutely like addicted to copium about the fact that Tyreek Hill is gone. That's a bigger loss than that. You don't want to lose someone like Tyreek Hill when everyone in the division has gotten better. You have the Raiders getting Devontae Adams. You have the Broncos getting Russell Wilson. You have the Chargers getting two great defenders. You don't want to lose your best offensive weapon to not wanting to pay him because you're in a big contract with Patrick Mahomes. So you get to see if Patrick Mahomes can actually perform, which I think he should, without Tyreek Hill. However, I don't think he'll be as dominant as he has been without Tyreek Hill. That's the thing. Is Mahomes will never be a bad quarterback until he's like 50 and literally cannot throw past like 10 yards. He'll always be a great quarterback. I don't see him having a bad year without Tyreek Hill, but because he also has Travis Kelce, he has Juju and MVS who are solid but not great. Juju cannot be wide receiver one. I don't think people realize that. His best year was with Antonio Brown being wide receiver one. Thank you, Santi James. Oh, wait. Oh, it's Raider memes. Okay, I was like, who's that? Thanks, bro. Yeah, I think they got Ronald Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire as their backfield, which is a very mid. That is the definition of mid for a backfield. Like they're not good running backs in my opinion. There's a reason why Leonard Fournette started over Ronald Jones very easily, and every time Ronald Jones was in, their running game was bad. So yeah, I think like I said, losing Tyreek Hill, way bigger than people like to talk about. They did draft McDuffie, Karlaftis, Sky Moore, and Justin Ross though. Well, they got Justin Ross as an undrafted free agent, but if Justin Ross can stay healthy and not have the problems that he has with something with his neck, I forget what the actual thing is. If he can get past that, he should be good. So that could be dangerous if he develops well. Same thing with Sky Moore. Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know a lot about them. All I know is that they were apparently good enough to be a first round pick. I think, they needed a corner. They didn't really have great corners. George Karlaftis, they don't really have an edge rusher. Was it Frank Clark? He's so overrated. Frank Clark used to be good. Chris Jones is their best. Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram. They had Melvin Ingram and they got rid of him for whatever reason. They should have kept Melvin Ingram, because I think if they had George Karlaftis and Melvin Ingram as their pass rushers, they would have been a lot better. But having Chris Jones and Karlaftis should be a decent defensive line. Nick Bolton is a solid defensive player as well. And they also drafted Isaiah Spiller, or I think it's Isaiah. I think his last name Spiller. I just wrote Spiller. Oops, I forgot his last name, first name. But Ray Shee. But yeah, I think their defense should be actually really good. Not really good, but very good. They had one of the best defenses last year towards the end. There's a reason why they went on a... Oh, let me find it. I wrote it down somewhere. Where did I write it down? Oh, well. Oh, there it is. Yeah, they started off 3-4 and then they went on an 8-1 run after week 7. Starting 3-4, ending 8-1 is absolutely insane. And they faced, I think, us twice, which was pretty easy. They faced Denver, which they beat pretty easily because they have like a 14-game win streak on them. And then they faced the Chargers, which they almost lost to, but thank God they didn't. Because I would have hated to see Chargers win that game. But yeah, I think the Chiefs will obviously still be good. I just don't think they'll be as great as they were without Tyreek Hill. Kelsey's getting old. I think he's... Am I starting from first place? I'm just going through the different teams as I go along. So the only team you missed me talk about was the Broncos, which I'll put on back on. I have the Broncos going 7-10 and 11-6. That's true. They are paying a lot for Clark. But I don't even think Miami... How much did Miami pay for Melvin Ingram? Let's look this up. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins signed them for 1 year, $5 million. I mean, maybe it was like maybe he just agreed to it just because. Yeah, I mean, the Broncos I feel like they're either gonna suck ass or they're gonna be decent. I don't think they're gonna be great as people are saying. But yeah, Melvin Ingram was only 1 year, $5 million. I mean, that was probably same thing with Tyreek. They couldn't pay him because of their contracts that they have. But I feel like they should have made it work because he was one of the reasons why their defense became so good. Is that midseason signing for Melvin Ingram that helped their defense? They bolstered their defense a lot, in my opinion. But that's just me. Yeah, I think Kelsey is still gonna be a good weapon. He's still gonna be one of the best top 3 tight end in the league. But he is 33, so there's always the problem of injury at that age, especially for a tight end. I mean, Mahomes is still gonna be great. Mid receiver, Russ is too new head coach, overhyped secondary. I wouldn't say overhyped. I would say they have Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain. After that, I'm not sure who they have. I wouldn't say overhyped. I would just say actually overhyped maybe. But I think it's still a really solid secondary. Not the best one in the division. No, that's the Chargers, in my opinion. But we'll get there. But yeah, I have them the ceiling at 12-5. I can't see him getting too many wins without Tyreek Hill. I think he's a big reason why they get so many wins sometimes. But I also don't see him being bad because like you can't have the Chiefs win the division like 5 years in a row, go to the AFC Championship games 4 years in a row, and get a Super Bowl, and not have them be the best or one of the best in the division. So, fortunately, I think the Chiefs are still going to be good this year. And then moving on, we're going to talk about the Raiders. So, I have floor of 8-9. It could also be 7-10. The Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs. I think Broncos have a better secondary just because of Surtain. I think we'll have a fine secondary. I think people are overhating our secondary, but I don't think we'll have a better secondary than the Broncos. Yeah, our floor will be 8-9, maybe 7-10. I said 8 and 9 just because I can't see us losing that many games. I can't see us losing 7 games with the amount of talent, just pure talent we have on the team, unless we absolutely like shit the bed or we have Carr get injured. You have obviously Derek Carr getting Devontae Adams, reuniting with Devontae Adams, which is probably one of, if not the biggest move this offseason that finally happened. It should have happened back in 2018 apparently, but Gruden's gonna wants Mr. Big Chest instead of Devontae Adams or whatever. I think that getting Devontae Adams for a first and a second and paying him the way we did was a really good get. You also have Chandler Jones being added to our defensive line. And about that, we basically got Chandler Jones and Rocky Sin and traded for Ngakwe. That's how I look at it, which I think is a really great deal. Love Ngakwe. I love what he did for us last year. Sometimes his run defense most of the time was bad. Yeah, Raiders secondary not better than Broncos. Agreed. But I think getting Chandler Jones, who's basically Ngakwe, but a little older, but also more consistent, especially against, just in general, I think an overall better pass rusher. And you have to think about it, like he got 5 sacks week 1, and he only had 10.5 to end the year, but he also didn't have anyone else on the D-line. Like, who else on the D-line was actually, like, good? JJ Watt was out for almost the entire season. So I think that's one of the big reasons why he didn't have as many sacks as he could have. But having Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on the same line, and them most likely being healthy, because Chandler Jones and Max Crosby have not missed a lot of games in their careers. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Because I don't want to jinx that. They're gonna be a really good duo. But yeah, Raiders don't have enough pressure up the middle at all. That's a very good point. Our defensive tackles is not good. I mean, Jonathan Hankins is mid. It's about as average as you can get for a defensive tackle. He's average against the run. He's decent against the pass. He doesn't get a lot of sacks though, but he does like kind of eat up some space. I think that if we were to get someone like Ndamukong Suh for like a 1-year vet min, or just 1 year, 5 mil, 10 mil even, I wouldn't mind that, because he's such a powerhouse up the middle even at his age. Or even someone like Eddie Goldman, because we shouldn't be relying on old vets like Bilal Nichols and Jonathan Hankins and rookies. And also those vets are not even like, and I just named Ndamukong Suh and Eddie Goldman, but Eddie Goldman and Ndamukong Suh, wow, I cannot say the name. I agree with that. If Raiders actually have a defensive tackle, like that's actually not even, it doesn't even have to be an elite defensive tackle, just someone that can eat double teams and not be able to double team him all the time, he'll have way more sacks. It's just the fact that a defensive end had more pressures than anyone else on the team, including defensive tackles, is insane. Because defensive ends should not be the ones getting the most pressure on the team. And that number, like 101 pressures or whatever, is not something that your defensive end should be doing. He shouldn't be, and then only have 8 sacks, I should say. Because if he's getting 101 pressures, he should be getting the sacks, but he didn't, because our defensive tackles were not that good enough to let him take the edge and like get close in on the quarterback, because the quarterback could just step up and he would be left on the outside. Like, Bilal Nichols is like 24, yeah, but he's also mid. I should say older and mid defensive tackles. Bilal Nichols, I think, also gets a lot of credit because he was on the line with Khalil Mack and who's the other guy that's really good? They have a really good defensive line. They have a good defense in general. My point is, our defense is now a lot better because of the Ngakwe and Rocket Sin trade. Getting Chandler Jones to replace Ngakwe for a little bit more money, but also getting Rocket Sin was really big. Resigning Hankins was at least good, because we don't have to rely on rookies and Bilal Nichols, because everyone else we got in the offseason is not that great. I think Sanjit really likes Vernon Butler, which I don't know why. because their pass rush, the Bills' pass rush was literally the weakest part of their defense. Like didn't get, or was it, or was it the Titans? Am I thinking of the Titans? No, the Titans was really good last year. I think it was the Bills that didn't have a great defensive line, didn't get a lot of sacks. Let me look that up. Now I feel like an idiot. I think there's a reason why they got Von Miller. Yeah, whatever. I can't find it right now, but point still stands. Exactly. Against the Chiefs, Mahomes was able to just step on the pocket and just dump it off to Kelsey for like 10 yards each play. That's why we got killed, is because we had no pressure up the middle, and then we didn't cover the flat, so he was able to just step up, and there was no pressure. There was pressure because he had to step up, but there wasn't any pressure after that to do anything like desperate. Neil Farrell Jr. and Matthew Butler, I hope, develop to be nice, but I don't know how well they're actually going to develop in their first year, especially since they're such late round picks. I think Zamir White will be our future running back one if Josh Jacobs leaves, because he's literally Josh Jacobs, but just runs in a different offensive scheme, or I should say offensive line scheme. Josh Jacobs likes zone run blocking, while Zamir is more power based. And he has a lot more speed than Jacobs does. I think they'll definitely be a 1A, 1B. I think that eventually, as we go along in the season, Zamir might take over reps from Kenyon Drake. Kenyon might become the fourth running back on the team, which is unfortunate because I really like Kenyon Drake. I think Brandon Bolden should be the running back 3 because he's a really great pass protector, which Kenyon Drake struggles with. Pardon me. We also got Kenny Young and Jayon Brown and Micah Kaiser to help with the linebackers. I think our linebacking core is actually going to be really good this season. We actually have a good linebacking core for the first time in who knows how long. I don't even know our last best linebacker before Perryman. It's been that long since we've had a good linebacking core. It's always linebackers and defensive tackles we seem to struggle with and getting. But now we have Denzel Perryman, Divine Diablo, Jayon Brown, Kenny Young, and Micah Kaiser, which should be a great linebacker core. Micah Kaiser, Kenny Young, and Jayon Brown were all starters or split starters, or at least starting backups on all the other teams that are on. So I think that's a really good sign that we got a lot of good depth. Now the O-line is, I'm glad you brought up the O-line. I like the Parham pick a lot because he's the thing with how they want to do their offensive lines. They want to have a lot of movement. They want to be able to move people around as they see fit. So you want to have a lot of variety in the places that your people can play. That way, if you want to do a funky like switcheroo while they're doing like a run block or a pass block or whatever, or some sort of play, you want to be able to make sure that your lineman can not only play right guard but also play left guard or even center. You want to make sure that left tackle can kind of cover left guard a little bit if they need to and stuff like that. Like I think Colton Miller will just stay on the left tackle, and then right tackle you'll have like an anchor. Those are the two anchors on the line. The middle of the line is where you can have the most freedom in moving people around, because they're pretty much they're so close together. You want Parham because if James doesn't end up working out like we think or we hope he does, Parham's the center. He can play center. If not, he can replace someone at guard, because we only have John Simpson and Lester Cotton and Illuminor and Good. Now, all of them are either injured or unproven. We also have Leatherwood, who can play right guard, but I would like to see him at right tackle where we drafted him. We'll see how that goes. I think the offensive line is going to be the make or break, which is pretty obvious. That's most teams is make or break for them. Definitely the offensive line should hopefully be improved from last year. I think that Tom Cable looked better than he was at first. He was riding off the coattails of getting Colton Miller to be really good. And then I think we just need to see our offensive line. I think they'll be better in a different scheme too. We're not going to be running zone, which is a lot more switching and like pulls and stuff like that. And if they're just kind of they're going to be playing a different scheme, like an offensive line scheme. So maybe that'll help them a lot more. And also, I trust the Patriots O-line coach because they have a great O-line. They've had a great O-line the past few years. So, and they don't really have. I mean, they have some really good linemen in New England, but I think if I trust anyone to develop linemen, it's that guy. I don't even know his name off the top of my head, which is not good. But we also lost Brian Edwards, which sucked because I was hoping he would be developed into that really good fourth option. So if we had Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and then we had Brian Edwards, I think Brian Edwards would have succeeded heavily because a lot of the pressure to perform up to a high level would have been taken off of him, which I think why he struggled. I think he has the physical abilities. I'm not sure about his mental. I can't speak on that though because I don't know how to judge mental that well. But that's the only thing I can think of is why he didn't maybe perform as much as we wanted him to. Is because he had so much pressure to perform at the highest level he could. Briscolo, that's what it is. I knew it was some Italian name. But yeah, I wish we kept Edwards, but Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson should cover that fourth option at receiver very well. People hate Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson because they're bad. They're just not great. They're okay to good, which is all you need for a fourth receiver. Yeah, and Edwards was a third round pick, and I honestly think that even I was kind of overhating him for a little bit there. I mean, 500 yards is really good if he's your fourth option, or maybe even your third option. But you don't want that as supposed to be your number one. There shouldn't have been an expectation, but there was because we lost Ruggs. Ruggs was supposed to be our number one, and you would think that Edwards should develop to that number one because Zay Jones is not that number one wide receiver. Hunter Renfrow became the number one because Zay Jones was okay and Edwards was okay. So Hunter, our slot receiver, became our number one, which slot receivers can become number one like Cooper Kupp. And even I think like Justin Jefferson's technically a slot receiver or something like that. But you also don't want that when you don't have Darren Waller either. If it was Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, it would have been a little bit different. But if it's just Hunter Renfrow as your number one option for receiving, he can shake and bake all he wants, but eventually he'll start to get covered, which, eventually that's why he got 1,000 yards, but only 10 yards per reception, because he got a lot of short passes because he's a slot receiver. He's not a deep threat. But yeah, Brian Edwards is also not really a deep threat, but he's supposed to be an outside threat, and we didn't really get to see that too much. And then we also had Djax, who should have been that Ruggs guy, but ended up kind of disappointing. He got 200 yards, which is okay, but that's like a fifth option. Should have been our like after Waller got hurt, it should have been like Renfrow, Djax, Edwards, Zay, but it ended up being Renfrow, Zay, Edwards, Djax, which was kind of disappointing as well. It was kind of a mess, but I think Edgar Bennett should also have a nice development of Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson and Matt Collins into our offense. Foster is frustrating because he has the physical gifts to be a really elite tight end, or at least a really, really good tight end, but he has a lot of mistakes and mishaps that happen way too many times for it to be good. But he's a good tight end too, which is all we need him for. But I wish he also stepped up to be tight end one, but that didn't happen. So the stars of our team are Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, and maybe Zamir White. I could see him becoming a star, in all honesty. I think Zamir could definitely become that 1A, 1B with Josh in the backfield. And then for the defensive side, you have Max Crosby, obviously, Chandler Jones, obviously, Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Moehrig, Rock Ya-Sin, you have Denzel Perryman, Divine Diablo, and then, of course, our special teams trio is going to be good no matter what. Yeah, I think that Foster was fine, but you don't want... He didn't play as well as he should have. He had a chance to prove himself to be a tight end one, the number one tight end, and he didn't do it that well. Because he was supposed to basically replace what Waller could do. I thought he could do it in the Eagles game, but that was like an outlier because that didn't work after that. He had quite a few fumbles in bad spots. I do miss Ingold. So the reason why we got rid of Ingold is because Gruden loves his pass catching fullbacks, which is why we got Ingold. But Ingold's not the best at actually being a fullback and blocking. He's a really great receiver though, which is why we got Jacob Johnson from the Patriots, because Jacob Johnson is a really good fullback, really good blocking fullback. Malcolm Coots, Malcolm Coots, you mean Baby Mac? I think that Baby Mac will be a great rotational piece this year. Behind either Crosby or Jones, I'm not sure which side he'll be on. I think Jacob Johnson is definitely a better pure fullback. He's not a good receiving fullback, but he's definitely a better blocking fullback. If you look at like the tape he has, he's definitely a better fullback. Alec Ingold is okay at blocking, but a really good receiver. Jacob Johnson's literally the opposite. He's not really used to be a receiver at all, but he's a really great blocker, which is what you want in a McDaniels offense. I think Baby Mac will be a great rotational pass rusher for us. All right, let's move on to the next team. I think we talked about the Raiders a good amount. We can go back to the Raiders, but I want to talk about the last team, the Chargers. So you might be surprised by the 13-4, and I'll explain it because that's the best record I've had out so far. The reason is realistically the Chargers should be the team in the AFC West, in my opinion. They have the most talent. Realistically, they have probably the best, one of the best offensive trios or quadruplets in the entire league. And Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler. They don't have a great tight end, but you don't always need a tight end when you have that going on. They also have, on paper, what should be a great defense. They have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack as a duo, which I know Khalil Mack was injured last year, but having 6 or 7 sacks in only like 6 games is still really good for how much older he is. Joey Bosa also had a great season. I mean, as much as I don't like to admit it, they're both really good pass rushers, and they have the option or the ability to become the best pass rushing duo and rival Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. It matters if they can stay healthy. I don't think Mac has a problem with staying healthy. He kind of had like a freak injury. He's been pretty much healthy his whole career. Joey Bosa hasn't really been that healthy, but he also has. Joey Bosa is like somewhat pretty much injury prone. I definitely get the overrated idea from, and I don't like the Chargers. They're really annoying because they've never done anything, but yet they've had all this talent for years, but they have never done anything yet to like talk shit. But thing is that they do have a lot of talent. I cannot deny that they have probably the most talent in the league just because of not only their offense, but if Brandon Staley can actually establish their defense to actually be competent and not be like bottom of the barrel, they should be a lot better. Getting JC Jackson, people may say he's overrated and he gets burned by Mike, something Guyton in practice, but that's what the shit happens. I mean, JC Jackson's gonna be a really solid corner. But it's like JC Jackson, Derwin James, and Asante Samuel in the same backfield, in the same secondary. That's an insane secondary. And plus you have I don't really know much about their like actual linebackers, but they got Kyle Van Noy, who although old is still really good. You also have Sebastian Joseph Day as a defensive tackle. And you also have Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. That defense realistically should be really good. I don't see them. Yeah, Jalen Guyton, that's what it is. But the reason why I have 8 and 9, it being basically the same as ours, because not only did they have technically a worse record, but basically the same record as us last year, is because they're also the Chargers, which is why them having a lot of talent is both scary and also not scary, because they've been they have a history of wasting talent. They had Philip Rivers, Antonio Gates, and Lindamian Tomlinson all at the same time, and they won nothing. They went to the AFC Championship game once, and they lost to the Patriots. Though Philip Rivers did put a good performance with a torn ACL, but regardless of that, they haven't won anything. Yeah, I mean, Rocky Sin, I think, is going to be our CB1. You have Nate Hobbs, and plus with Trayvon Murray, but Rocky Sin is not, and Nate Hobbs are not, I don't think, on the same level, or they're close to the same level, but JC Jackson's probably the best corner, along with Patrick Surtain in the division. Yeah, well, that's also they had number one offense and number one defense, but they also had the worst special teams, and they lost them a lot of games. Yeah, I think the Chargers should be. They have all the talent and all the ability to be really good. They also have an O-line to protect Justin Herbert. I almost said Justin Jefferson. Justin Herbert, who should still be probably about a top 5, top 6 QB in the league. Nothing about their team is overrated per se. They just don't execute. Brandon Staley needs to prove that he can actually put it. Like, the reason they didn't make the playoffs isn't because of their offense, and he's a defensive-minded coach. It's because of their defense, which is you don't want to see that as a defensive-minded coach, is having your defense be like 26th in the league. Best O-line in the division, it's either them or the Chiefs. But yeah, floor 8-9, ceiling 13-4. I can't see it being any worse than that. And then I didn't make a graphic for this, but I'm just going to say verbally out loud. Actually, I'll just type it. I think I can add a text box. Add text box. Let's hide this right here. I'm gonna give you my rankings. Final rankings for the AFC West. So, number 1, we're going to have... Yeah, I don't know how much people are going to like this. This is my final rankings. Asterisk means they make the playoff. I'm not going to give a record prediction because I'll do that for another time. But this is kind of my final guess for how it's going to shake out. If the Chargers don't charger it, they should be the best team in the division. I think the Raiders might be better than the Chiefs right now, just based on the fact that I think our offense might even be a little bit better, and I think our defense might be about even. I think we split with the Chiefs. And then something I didn't talk about the Raiders is that I'm also worried about Josh McDaniels choking again as a head coach and not doing well. But because he's now more focused on being a head coach and not head coach GM like he was in Denver, I think he should be a much better coach. But yeah, this is kind of my final thoughts on how the AFC West is going to shake out. That's wrong way. That is how it's going to shake out. I think Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos is fair, but honestly, it's too early to tell. Oh, it's definitely too early to tell. Broncos, I think coming in last is a pretty good consensus pick. I think a lot of people say the Raiders are going to come in last, which, I mean, I think our lowest we'll go is 3rd. I'm going to call it now. If we come in 4th, I'll be very upset. That'll be like the worst thing to happen. But if we make playoffs and come in 4th, I'll take it. I think it's fair to say the Broncos could come in last just because of their possibly struggles they'll have with the coaching and Russell Wilson, and maybe the receivers are not as good as they think, and the defense maybe not as good as it used to be. Chiefs there because they don't have enough oomph on their offense right now, unless Justin Ross or Sky Moore or Juju or MBS could pop off and become that Tyreek Hill weapon. You still have Travis Kelce though, and Mahomes, and that good offensive line. Yeah, I don't know how the Raiders could possibly win only 6 games. Honestly, I don't see how any of these teams could have a losing record, even the Broncos, Chargers, any of them. I don't see how any of them could have a losing record. the only reason why they would is because if they do bad in the division, because our division's just so good. That is basically my thoughts on the AFC West. We'll see how this shakes out. It's a little too early to tell. I think Tuesday is when I think I'm going to do have chat you guys, and we're gonna guess all the games for the entire season using that playoff predictor. We're having scenario Raiders to be first. Chargers need to charger. Chiefs need to be not as good as I think, and Broncos need to be just how I think they are. I think their offense definitely needs to be at least top 10, and their defense needs to be top 15 to be first in the division, because the Chargers will have a top 5 offense, and they should have a maybe top 10, maybe borderline top 10 defense. So we need to have really good offense and a really good defense and just basically win our division games. This division is really hard because there's a bunch of good teams facing each other a lot, so one team is going to not win all those games, and I think the Broncos are, because they haven't beat the Chiefs in 14 games, and they haven't beat us in 5. Or, I don't know, they're 5-1 against us in the last 3 years, which is crazy because we sucked. Chargers also kind of struggle in division games, and we usually split with them, even though they've been the better team for the past few years. Yeah, I think if the Raiders, the team, obviously, this is a booger moment right here. I'm just going to put it on the screen right now. This is a big booger McFarland moment. The team that wins their most division games is going to win the division. Wow, shocker. Which is not really that shocker, because we also won the whole division or something. We beat every team, but we still didn't make playoffs or even win the division. But my point still stands. We need it to be... we need to go like 4-2 at least, or no, 3-3 at least with the in division to actually be able to have a chance to win the division. But yeah, all right. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna end the stream now because A, I really need to use the restroom, and B, I don't have much else to talk about. I'll continue this on Tuesday though, because we're gonna do big bracket prediction. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Maximus signing off, and have a great day. Bye-bye.